and this is From the Black Pool of Genius.
Peace, how is everyone doing? I hope that you are in great health and spirits wherever you may be. I am your host, Sirius One, and today's show is going to be more opinionated than anything. And not saying that other shows don't have opinions in them, because I go off observation, I go off of research and history, but a lot of things are painted by my perception. So, not to get too technical, but today's topic is going to be highly opinionated, and it is about the importance of history. Now, I totally understand if you don't care about history. I totally understand if, it's not like a passion or something that, is a steady study for someone that is not, I just, love to look at history. I understand that. Me personally, I love to look at history. So it is a personal passion of mine to research things, to read about, the origin of things or where things come from, how they came to be. And, it is just an interest of mine. But I understand if it's not an interest of someone else. What I do not understand, though, is the downplaying of history and historical origins and seeing how things came to be. And this is the cognitive dissonance, and I'll give this example. You can talk to someone about sports, and they'll run down, they might not run down the history of the sport, but they'll run down stats and statistics and give you takes on why a certain player is not good or why a certain team is not good. And that observation might be highly accurate. And a lot of times it's not coming from just their general feeling. It's coming from their observation and historical analysis of players and the teams and the history of that league. So in that instance, the history is important, right? I mean, no one says that, this player is great without an historical marker of what greatness was before that person, he or she. But we'll just use any, a male dominated league. We won't say, oh, this person is great because they're just great. No, there is a historical precedent set for what greatness is. And a lot of times this player might meet or break above or, or shatter whatever record or ability or skill. And you will be able to measure, okay, this is greatness. But when it comes to anything that is social, political, or culturally orientated, people will say, oh, I don't care about history. Why is history important? It makes no sense to me. And I'm not trying to argue, everyone should study history. I understand that everyone has their expertise and the things that they're interested in and the things that pique their interests. But don't say that history is not important. I don't understand why that's important. When you can break down the history of players and origins and how they play and the skills that they have and where they derive their playing style from. Yet when we talk about historical analysis as far as politics and economics and social structures and racism, because usually it centers around race and culture and history, people will say, oh, I don't care about that. That's not important. It just makes no sense. Find me the person that is interested in any field and doesn't look into the history of it to master it, and I'll give you all the money out of my bank account, which isn't much, but I'll give you all the money out of my bank account. I mean, just by common sense, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So you don't just say, oh, I made this, I invented this. No, you look at what people have done before you. If you're intelligent, if you're developed enough, you grow up and you look at what people have done before. You see the improvements that they made, and you see, okay, how can I possibly improve this? Or how can I possibly build upon this? Or how can I possibly reinvent and change it so where it's a drastic, vast improvement on what was made before, right? But when it comes to improving the social political conditions of mainly African people, or so-called black people, the historical analysis is not important. And that just makes no sense to me. Things don't happen by happenstance. There's a great quote by the late Dr. Bobby Wright. He has a lecture. It's on YouTube. He had a lecture in Atlanta at the Atlanta Metropolitan College. And he talked about the psychosis of the conditions of so-called black people globally. In that if the situation on our planet where African people or indigenous people are at the bottom and Eurasian people are at the top was natural and not by a socially constructed and very strategic plot by these countries and corporations, then you will see somewhere on the planet a dominant African country, or a country that is dominant, ran by so-called black folks. But you don't see that. You look at the G8 nations; they're all Eurasian or Asian. You look at the countries that have, the top, military arsenal. They're all Eurasian or Asian. You look at the top economies. They're all Eurasian or Asian. But then when you look at the countries that provide all the raw resources, the natural resources, they're all destabilized for the most part. They're all just, coming out of colonialism. They're all just, coming out of being underdeveloped by the countries that colonize them and parasite off them till this day. And I can break that down in the microcosm. We can look at the so-called black communities in America, or black folks in America, and you can look at our collective state as far as what we own, what we control, what we have power over as far as industry and things of that nature. And you see that there is a power vacuum. I mean, people confuse degrees and debt, student loan debt, and debt of all sorts as power, but power is controlling industry. Power is controlling culture. Power is controlling what you value and how that value is exchanged. And we see there is a definite deficit and exchange of value. And what do I mean by that? As far as so-called black folks are concerned in the United States, with all the wealth accumulation, and let's just look at one industry, all the wealth accumulation and all the skill and talent and ability that we have, and let's say the music industry. I mean, sports and music are all entertainment, but let's just look at music. With all the skills, talent, innovations, inventions, creations, and ability that our people have in music and the music industry, all the songs that have been written, all the music labels that have been created, all the media outlets that have been used, the dominant labels and the dominant media outlets and the people who dominate as far as business wise the music industry are not the people that create the music, and that is by strategic planning. That is not by happenstance. That is not by accident. And I mean, I can tell you personally, from experience, that this is what happens, but we can't all just blame it on people outside of our culture or outside of our ethnic or racial background. Since a lot of our people have a low self-esteem and low knowledge of self and see people outside of themselves as more valuable than themselves, you can have the most skilled, talented, innovative, creative production, most innovative, creative concepts, most innovative, creative lyrics and hooks. But if it is not validated by people outside of your community, then it is not deemed as worthy. And what they validate many times is images and concepts that are to the detriment of yourself. A quick example of that is Michael Jackson. People always debate, which album was better, Off the Wall or Thriller. Now, in my opinion, Off the Wall is one of the greatest albums ever created. But according to Michael Jackson, it didn't do as well as he wanted it to do because it wasn't validated by crossover, aka Eurasian audiences. It didn't get the reception that he thought it should have gotten with other people. So with Thriller, the sound was more pop. It was more Euro rock influence. There was more, pop influence. Whereas Off the Wall was more funk, soul, jazz, disco influence. But that's just an example of, since the genius is not validated by people outside of you, then we have to, and not saying that, Thriller was, degradation in any way, but just giving an example of we seek validation from everyone except ourselves. And in some ways that can be detrimental, but I'm just saying we seek validation outside of ourselves. We seek validation for standards and ethics and morals that are not native to us, conducive to our, longevity or growth and overall well-being. But that's just my opinion. That's just, one example, the music industry. If we dominated the music industry from a business standpoint, and also, I forgot to say about Michael Jackson, when he started to dominate on the business side of things, suddenly he became Wacko Jacko. Suddenly he became, this crazy, greedy guy when he started learning, okay, publishing is where the business is at. Music and performing and dance is cool, but I'm going to own this publishing, especially from the people that you validate, like the Beatles, and now you hate me suddenly. You went from media darling to, Elephant Man. You think that's by coincidence, huh? Really? You don't say. But that's just one example, dominating the music industry, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we can look right now, a lot of the big labels in the United States have gone over to the African continent to swoop up the talent that is there, as far as Afro beats, which has become more popular in the last couple of years, because they pretty much have, I won't say destroyed, but they have mutated what is popular as far as rap music is concerned in the United States. Hip hop, rap, and popular R&B. To where we don't even recognize it. And people will make all kinds of excuses, for a lot of this stuff, but really it's a watered down, GMO, hybridized version of what's acceptable for people outside of your community. And we eat it up because we don't, value ourselves and see ourselves, but as other people see us. But that's just my opinion. So what say you? I didn't want to make this too long. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. I'd love to know your thoughts, your comments on this topic. Am I off? Am I reaching with this idea? The importance of history, the importance of knowing, the ins and outs of any field that you're interested in or anything that you're interested in, but especially social, political, cultural conditions, origins, because with these things you can look at patterns usually, and you can project or you can predict accurately many times what will come in the future. That's what meteorologists do to a very large degree. That is what many scientists of any field do to a large degree. That is what economic theorists and people that work with economies do. They look at previous and prior history and they project out, what the liable outcome will be in the future. But history doesn't matter. It's not important. That stuff is in the past. It doesn't shape what is going on today and what the future may bring. So I thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.